And so we put it right out there. We talk about the mission of this home. It was to be a place for young men and women to have an experience of God's love. I mean, they didn't have to do anything to earn their way in there. There wasn't much they had to demonstrate. But it was a place where they'd be supported, mentored, and challenged to pursue their own goals, and some things that the house even put in front of them around things that they were capable of. So 3 years in, we do have what we call traction, meaning a place where you stop spinning your wheels and start getting somewhere. We've got the Traction family, and this is a family photo from about a year ago. And we are one big, crazy, silly, happy, funny, adopted family. And we live together, and we celebrate together. This was a Martin Luther King celebration at the house a couple of years ago. We go grocery shopping together, and we cook together, and we go to the Red Box together, and we try to find movies we all like, and we get home and we watch. I'm sorry, I'm a bad photographer, so these pictures are awful. They're probably from my phone. I think I did something that means I can't click anymore.
If you press escape last, probably.
Okay. So we do have good times, but we also have our challenging times. This is coming off of what we call the Reconciliation Retreat, which is something we had to do after a bunch of folks in the house thought it was going to be okay to smoke marijuana inside of the house, and they thought they might not get caught on that one. So lots of things like that happen when you've got folks who don't have that much to lose coming in to our home. And so we had to spend a weekend figuring out through what God teaches us about reconciliation, how we were going to make this work, how we felt like we could be good together, trust one another, and move forward in a different way. We also celebrate a lot, every little thing that anybody accomplishes, because for some people it's a big thing. We celebrate that, and we celebrate life. It's kind of sad, the amount of young adults who've been a part of our family who've said this is the first birthday party that they've ever had. And it just sort of speaks to some of the spaces and places that folks are coming from. This is another family photo from a couple years ago, and I would say we clean up well, because like most families that I've ever been a part of or connected with, we have the in-laws and we have the outlaws. We've got folks who live in our house who have master's degrees, and we have folks who have some criminal records that they don't want to show people when they try to look for work. And we have folks who've been homeless for a while, and we have folks who are coming out of some pretty bad abusive spaces, and from prostitution, and from some folks who just got here from other countries, and we end up having folks who dropped out of school and are looking to get back into education, but all kinds of people. When I think about how we got here, this was certainly not where I thought I would be, and not something I thought I could accommodate ever in my home. But what it really was just a bunch of baby steps that sort of led here. One decision after another. We decided we had this space. We could accommodate some of the young people we knew. I work with young adults every day, more in an educational capacity. I'm a principal of like a couple schools. We could probably bring some of those folks into the house, and so we did that. And then we said, hey, we've got some family who could use some support. So we brought some of those folks in at different times. And then we had friends who said, hey, I'm working with some young people, and they could use some support. And so we brought some of those folks in, and then we had churches who were connected with us and said, these are some folks who could probably really take some steps towards Christ if they had folks who they lived around who knew Christ and could show that to them in their everyday lives. And so we took some of those folks. And then, we started taking friends of friends, friends of people who lived in the house. And at this point, really, anybody could call up and say, I know a young person who needs some support, and this is what I could tell you about them. And did we ever think that we would be a place where you could make referrals? No, not really ever. But that's what it's become. And it ended up, we had to do some things to really even get there. We had to make some decisions about bringing in folks who could do things that we just didn't have my pastor calls it missional graces to do, or just maybe the bass in their voice to do, whatever it might be. There were things that we couldn't do, and so we said to some folks who, we said we'd love to do it, but we've got other things to do. We said, well, hey, why don't you come and live for free, as long as you support this mission that we're after. So we got a couple folks that way. And even before that, it meant that there had to be some agreement that we were all on the same page about what our values were and what it meant to love whoever was in our family as if they were the family that we've always known. And so I felt fortunate to find folks who were like that and bring them into the house. And before that, at some point, I had to be able to articulate, right? What am I trying to do? Jesus love. Oh, we're supposed to love people like we love ourselves. What does that mean? And so at some point, I did that. I wrote it down. I said, this is what I want it to be about. I want spaces where folks can come in and experience God's love. I want to be the church, and I want to be around people who want to be the church. And I want people to pursue health in all sorts of different ways. And I want to resolve conflict biblically, because I see so many ways that it doesn't happen that way. And I feel like there's so many people out there who are in a lot of ways dependent, but have so much to offer. Or we treat them like they're dependent, and they have so much to offer. And I want to see that happen more. And the reality is, I didn't one day wake up and say that's the person that I wanted to be. There was a process, and that's what I was especially excited about sharing today, is just when I think about how I got here, how did that happen? So this is the road to the values, I guess I was thinking of it as. I'm from a big family, which I feel like has added to my bag of gifts. One thing it meant was that I learned to share resources pretty quickly. And I learned that sometimes you just have to make things happen yourself, because folks are doing whatever they need to do. And I had a mother who said, you don't have to look any further than me to know that certain mistakes you don't want to make, and that you should really focus on education. And she also took us to church, from as long as I can remember. So that was something that I sort of just had. And I took that and I went to college. And when I was in college, I found something that I hadn't found in the church. So I joined InterVarsity. There's small groups, large groups. But it was pretty clear that it didn't matter whether I went to the small group, large group church or not. There were people who were coming after me. And they would come and they'd pray for me and they'd share stuff with me, and they introduced me to Jesus in a way that I had not been introduced to Jesus before. It was just different. And it was like all of a sudden the gospel became really clear in a different way. And that was really impactful. It's like this something that I hadn't seen before, this relational ministry. And I looked for that after I left college. Whoa, my gosh, that was great. I want to see more of that. And I connected with some folks in a community who were all about that. 2 more minutes. Wow. Who were all about that. And so I grew a value for that. And it was so important to me that even though I was in my early 20s, when a lot of people stop going to church because they don't have to, it meant that I wanted to be a part of a church. So I joined a church that ended up growing my values in a lot of different ways and giving me some ministry experiences that I would not have had otherwise. But then at some point, that church, and I would give some credit to someone in the room, Gary, for this, said, you know, it would bless you to go outside of the church and use these values and bless the world. And I thought, oh, well, hey, that we don't have to be locked in the church. And then I went out and said, well, hey, this is what I want to do. I want to grow up my family, and this is what I want my family to look like. This is another traction photo. And then I connected with a group who said, hey, we would love to come around you. And now it's a house church that meets inside of our house to minister to the folks who are there relationally. And then the other cool thing that's happened is that the church is now coming and being a part of relationally. They're saying, Leslie, we love you. And we love your family too. Your new growing family keeps getting bigger, and they're being spiritual mentors, and they're loving on folks and walking alongside, discipling in ways that really made the difference for me, and I think make a difference for a lot of people. So I would just point that a lot of good things are happening. We've got a lot of folks who are connecting with family in ways that they just never felt like they had family before. Folks who are dreaming in ways that they felt like they couldn't in a long time. We've got people in the church who for a long time asked, how do I really connect with folks who I am so different from? And to say that, hey, I love you and I know you, and this is somebody in your family is something that works for them, and I can minister to your family. We've got folks who are disabled in a lot of different ways who are connecting to family, and it's special. And folks are going out into the community. These are folks in the house who are delivering cookies to other folks in our neighborhood that they've grown to know and love and work back and forth with. In the last year, 6 of the folks who've lived in the house have gone off to college, and these are folks who had dropped out of school. In their time, they got a GED and went off to college. And it's growing. One of the folks who lived in the house bought a house around the corner, said, hey, I want to open that up to young moms and their children. And she did that just this year, and already 2 of those moms went to college in September, something that they had been for a long time talking about, thinking about, and now it's happening. So it's special, it's big, does it really fit in a box? It's cool because we could say it's not a program, it's not a shelter, it's not a rooming house, it's not a job, and it's not a scam, and it takes the young people a long time to get that, like what's the catch, what are you going to do, you're taking stuff from me, but it's not that. What it really is it's a home and a family and a community, and it's a challenge for each of us to say, am I really loving these folks like I love myself? Am I buying them the same thing I'm buying me? Am I introducing them to the people that I love the most? And it's an opportunity for each of the folks who lives in the house and the church to minister and come around in a way that's a little different than we often do.
Thanks, Les. Any questions for Leslie? Just 1 or 2? And any questions? Okay, then we'll go. Thank you, Leslie.
Just going to ask, I could tell this was really a heart thing. A lot of times when people start visions and stuff, it's like, what are all the financial, all the legal ramifications? How did you let your heart lead down rather than all those other things? Or maybe I'm assuming something.
Well, one good thing is I'm impatient, and I couldn't wait to start a 501c3 or to do paperwork or that kind of thing. So for me it was, what can I do with what I have? And so I have a house, what can I do now with that house? And maybe that stuff will come later. And in different ways it sort of has. So I just sort of knowing what I have the capacity for, and in some ways ignoring some advice around like, oh, you should do this, and you should do that. Because I knew I would never do it.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm from California. I had a friend that let a couple live in his house, and they had lived there about a month, and then they went to evict them because they were doing bad things or whatever, and they couldn't because under California law, if you lived in the same place for so long, that was your home. And so it was quite a process then to get them out of your home. Do you face that in Boston?
Oh yeah.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, that's one of the challenges, and I do think it's helpful to just sort of know and think about what's possible. There's been, well, we haven't had that challenge. Basically, no one's signing a lease, no one's paying rent in our house, and so when really it doesn't work out, they do just leave, and it seems like law enforcement's on that side. But if they do pay money, then it becomes a different issue. And
In California, they just let them come and stay just like this. But then they tried to get rid of them, and there was at least a 30-day, if not longer, process. And they had no idea. I mean, it seems stupid. They were just trying to help these people out.
And so one of our policies is we want folks to go as positively as possible. And we've had folks go because they stole a bunch of stuff. And even then, it was really important to us that we were focused on your family, and family does this sometimes to one another. It means we can't all live together and trying to make, we still love you and we actually want you to be in a good space and work really hard to make sure they've got a place that they're going to afterwards. And that's been really helpful with some of those transitions, is we're not saying we're done, we don't want to see you again.
I know that we probably have lots of other questions we want to get to, but let's keep on going with our speakers, and then we'll have an opportunity to interact with some questions, and then bring them down.